Hi, welcome to another devlog for AAA Simulator, the game where you intentionally run game studios into the ground and have fun doing it. You heard that right. You'll run not just one, but multiple game studios, with permadeath between each round. If that sounds familiar, it's because those are the core mechanics of modern roguelikes. Yep, AAA Simulator has been a roguelike tycoon game this whole time. I just kept it a secret until now. I'm sure you might be wondering why and how that works. After all, the only games that could be considered roguelike tycoons or management sims that I could think of are things like Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld. And while those games do involve elements of randomness, and I guess the characters can die permanently, their playthroughs take way too long for me to consider them roguelikes. They're actually nothing like the games I think of when I hear the words roguelike or roguelite. Games like Hades, Balatro, and Dicey Dungeons, where you repeatedly do short runs and build your abilities as you go. I'll get into the details and explain how all that works soon enough, but first I want to talk about why I'm doing it. Business management and tycoon games don't seem to be at all compatible with the roguelike model of doing a run, getting as far as you can, failing, and starting over from the beginning, right? They're all about building empires and earning as much money as possible. Things that we've been told all our lives are long-term goals. So why would I try to mash these two genres together? Well, my reasoning is very simple. Game studios are roguelikes. At least most of them are. Think about it. What's the story of the average game studio? They start out small, make a game that grabs attention, go AAA, and then they try to make bigger and bigger games until one of two things happen. They either get absorbed by a bigger company, or they can't support themselves and they sell everything off for parts. I'm not just making this up either. I can give real-world examples. Have you ever heard the name Lars Wingefors? He's the CEO of Embracer Group today, but do you know how it all started? When he was young, he started off selling used comic books out of several shops you've never heard of because they don't exist anymore. Then he started Nordic Games to sell used video games. It became a successful retail chain, but later it started to fail, and eventually he was bought out by gameplay.com. In just a few short years, Lars had already completed 2 roguelike runs of business ventures. But it didn't stop there. Gameplay.com eventually started to fail, so they sold Nordic Games back to Lars for literal pennies, and it lasted a few more years before he filed for bankruptcy. 3rd run complete. Lars then started up Game Outlet Europe with the same old idea: selling video games. After about 4 years of this, he spun off a branch of the company to actually publish games. This was called Nordic Games Publishing, and they made some karaoke and dance games. From there, the company underwent absurdly rapid growth, buying up other companies that had failed their own latest runs, like Coffee Stain and THQ. That's when they became THQ Nordic. From there, the conglomerate grew out of control. They rebranded as Embracer and bought a ton of household names, including Saber, Gearbox, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, Dark Horse Entertainment, and a huge list of other AA and indie studios. By the end of 2022, Lars and friends owned franchises like Thief, Duke Nukem, Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, and any comic book character Dark Horse has ever published, plus Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So of course, the next thing that happened was a massive fall from grace. All this expansion was meant to impress shareholders, but as a $2 billion deal fell through, Embracer started shutting down dozens of projects and firing thousands of people. From June 2023 to May 2024, the structuring had led to the loss of 4,500 employees, the closure of 44 studios, and the cancellation of 80 in-development projects. And the bleeding didn't stop there. Despite these steps, the company still faced $1.5 billion in debt. So what did they do? They broke the studio into 3 new brands and started another run. So here we have the story of a man who fails his way up over and over, starting new companies out of the ashes of the previous ones. This all feels more like Hades than Zoo Tycoon, don't you think? And Lars Wingefors is just the first example I thought of. There are plenty of others, like Bobby Kotick, who started out at Arctronics, tried and failed to buy Commodore, and moved on to be the CEO of Leisure Concepts, International Consumer Technologies, and Activision, which became Activision Blizzard, which acquired King, and his run eventually ended when Activision Blizzard was acquired by Microsoft. Then he retired, rich, of course, while thousands of people were laid off. Of course. So you get the idea. I want to make a game inspired by these serial CEOs who chase profits until they run their companies into the ground. Each run, you step in as the CEO of a studio that's just sold their first AAA game, and you take the helm until it all crashes to the ground. Then you simply start again, only bigger. As I've mentioned in past videos, AAA Simulator already has the part where you chase infinitely increasing profits to please shareholders. In fact, the lose condition is triggered when you can't meet your shareholders' expectations anymore, and you're asked to resign. That's the permadeath part of the roguelike formula. But the other element I haven't talked about is the persistent progression. And for this I took heavy inspiration from my favorite roguelikes, Hades and Balatro. In these games, the idea of permadeath that defines roguelikes takes on an unintuitive quality, because it's actually by dying over and over that you make slow and steady progress towards completing a goal. In Hades, this takes place when you unlock new weapons, abilities, and plot points that stick around no matter how many times you die. You need to do dozens of runs to be both strong enough and progress the plot enough to finish the game. Similarly, in Balatro, you can unlock jokers by doing certain things like losing 5 runs or playing 200 hands. Once you unlock one, it's available forever, and these jokers randomly show up in your shop throughout each run, where you have a chance to buy them. That randomness is also one of the most Moorish things about roguelikes. Each run is different because of randomness, but you're still given enough control to win by making the best choice out of your random options. In Hades, this randomness takes place in the gods that show up in the next room, and in the 3 random boons they offer you. In Balatro, this randomness happens in the hands you're dealt, of course, but also in the cards available in the shop. I've made a similar mechanic in AAA Simulator that's inspired by these games, a mechanic that I haven't shown or mentioned until now. I call it Experts. Each month, 3 new experts are available at random for you to hire, and they all have special abilities, like the boons in Hades or the jokers in Balatro. You can also re-roll them at a cost, just like in other roguelikes. The idea is that these experts are consultants that you meet along your journey as a CEO, and they join your network permanently once they're unlocked by your runs. Even if you run one company into the ground, you still have the resources to make the next one bigger and better with the help of your experts. Experts are also unique people. You can't have duplicates under normal circumstances, and you can only have a limited number of total experts, so they're pretty powerful. Some prototypes I've come up with include the auteur, who doubles your hype, Bobby, who you can fire to satisfy the shareholders even if you're not going to make your target, and the PR specialist, who makes positive news events twice as likely. And just a disclaimer, any resemblance to people, real or fictional, is purely coincidental. Another thing these experts will do is add events to the pool, so they could unlock entirely new storylines. Events are the main gameplay mechanic, and your choices also modify your stats. This should lead to some awesome synergies that make absurdly high profits possible, just like any good roguelike would do. Back to the experts panel, there are a couple of other features I haven't talked about. There are managers, which are available to hire and fire at any time, and they'll have a cap of maybe 10 or so per studio. They're a way to adjust worker productivity with diminishing returns, of course, because nobody wants to be micromanaged. And finally, you have the quarterly bonus, which will be a one-time modifier you can buy that will last your whole run, kind of like vouchers in Balatro. As you can see, I have this all visually prototyped because I needed to make a trailer and a Steam page, but not all the mechanics are hooked up and balanced. That's what I'll be working on for the rest of the month. After which, I should hopefully have the first playable for you to get your hands on and test. Hopefully when this all comes together, I'll have a great narrative in the style of FTL, Hades, and Reigns, with addictive replayability and insane modifiers like Balatro. Then you'll be able to step into the shoes of our favorite fail-forward boys and start making stonks. If that catches your interest, head over to Steam and wishlist AAA Simulator. We've soft-launched the Steam page already to collect early wishlists, but we'll be improving it in the near future. So stay tuned. Until then, thanks for watching.